Joan. Sorry, I forgot to record, friends. I'm going to reintroduce Joan, and she is going to run us through Heart and Soul 101. So, Joan, take it away.
Thank you, Cheyenne. And thank you all for being here today. It's really a pleasure to be with you. Yes, I'm part of the staff at Community Heart and Soul. We are a national nonprofit organization focused on building stronger, healthier, and more economically vibrant towns across the United States. So, what does that really mean? To put it more simply, our work is all about bringing people together and lifting communities up to be the best they can be. I'm going to take the first like 15 minutes, I think, a little plus of our time together. So you'll hear a bit from me, and then everyone else will get to talk. Everyone else will get to talk. But I want to, start with a question. This is one we like to ask, and it's kind of maybe a big one as you're sitting there, maybe munching on some lunch goodies. Does getting people in your community to unify around a vision for its future feel like a huge task, or even seem impossible at times, or even getting a small group together, let alone a whole community together? We know that it can be hard to figure out where to start in really engaging people in meaningful ways in a community. And so the idea behind our model is that it provides a step-by-step process to make community engagement feel doable. That way, a community can start down the path of preserving what matters most to them while also addressing the changes they want to see. And I did see a comment pop up there. Yes, I think it's something we probably all can agree upon. In Vermont, where I'm located, and my staff, we're a small staff, about 15 at Heart and Soul, and we're spread in different places. I happen to be in Vermont, and today is town meeting day and voting. I don't know if that's going on in other communities, but it's making me think about this topic really specifically about how people hear things that are going on in their community, be part of the decision making process. And that's really what our organization is focused on. So this question of what do we do? Well, we train and support a nationwide network of certified community heart and soul coaches who then in turn provide training and guidance to local communities. So essentially in Montana, that's all the folks Cheyenne just introduced. That's why they were talking about training and being certified. So that's what we do. We train and certify and support coaches around the country who then work with their own communities because they know them best. And why do we do what we do? We believe that everyone deserves to live in a thriving community, full stop, right? We believe your town is worth it. Every town is worth it, right? Because you're the ones living there. And we believe each community is unique, and that the residents that are there really have the answers for making their community even better than it already is. So that I hope will continue to keep playing out as we're talking together. So, what is Community Heart and Soul? Well, Community Heart and Soul is not only the name of our organization, it's also the name of the process that communities go through. And it's a process designed specifically for small cities and towns with populations under 30,000. Because it's very people-centered, and it's easier to do that with smaller towns than, say, more urban locations or very large populations. And the process itself can be initiated by local residents, government officials, community-based organizations, or really any combination of these. And ultimately, it needs all of those groups to be engaged along the way. It's not something that just one group or one person does. It really is this second bullet here engages the entire population of town, no matter what role you're playing. But it's very resident driven. So when we say the process is people centered, it means that it's coordinated by people within your own community, neighbors talking to neighbors. And the coaching part is where communities get matched with a coach to help guide a community through each step of the process. And we'll talk a little bit more about like what some of the steps in the process look like. But ultimately, the community is the one doing the work to identify what they love most about their community. Only they can say that because they live there, right? What future they want for it and how to achieve it together. So that is kind of in a nutshell what the model looks like. So if you're wondering where we are, in the country, since we're a national organization. We're in about 20 states and over 120 communities. There's in particular been a lot of recent activity in your own state of Montana, but also neighboring states of Washington and Idaho. For example, we've had a total of 12 communities launch Heart and Soul in the past year and a half. In those states, it's with the help of partners like Community Foundation and Montana State University Extension that helps make this possible. So we're seeing a lot of communities are right in the middle of the process, and it's really exciting to see what they're talking about and the promising things that they see, for their own future. And as I said, each one is unique and each one has their own story, and that's what this is about. It's a process of discovery of a community's own storytelling to figure out what direction they want to go in. For our organization, it's really helpful to have so many communities doing this because we listen to what communities are doing, what is working for them, creative ideas that they have about how they engage their own community members, and we fold that back into, our own learning and our materials and pass that around to other communities to share. So basically, it's a field-tested model over 25 years in the making. So we've got a lot of learning that we share from the communities we've worked with. So if we can go to the next slide, this one, I love this image. There's a lot going on, but essentially it's about people's motivations for doing Heart and Soul. So why do communities choose to embrace this process? And by process, this is about a 24-month process, plus or minus, depending how communities, work through all the steps that we talk about. But why are they choosing to embrace the process? Well, usually because changes are happening within community. It might be that they're experiencing, rapid population increase, or the reverse, they're losing a lot of population. It could be a major industry is coming in, or a lot of industry is coming in, growth is happening really fast, or the reverse, that they're kind of losing industry. So those are some top ones that come to mind, but there's many reasons. A big one really is going through a process of discovery or rediscovery about, a community, because they want to remember, who are we, what are we trying to do here, and how does that give us some direction for the future. So when we say community heart and soul is a process of discovery, throughout the phases and the steps that you go through, you're really looking closely at, well, who does live here right now? What is it that we care about? What are our ideas for improvement? It's also about taking charge of your own narrative. So that's where this image goes on, what's going on in this scene. This is from a community, Galesburg, Illinois. And one of the narratives in that community was that, there's nothing to do in this community. There's nothing free to do. I think a beachfront or had closed, and someone, expressed, oh, that was the last free thing to do in the community. And other people wanted to challenge that narrative. And as part of their heart and soul process, they pulled out this huge public, you can say it's like a chalkboard, and said, you tell us, what are some free things to do in this community? And within a very short amount of time, course of a few hours, they had over 100 things on this list that, clearly there was a different narrative to be told. The little side story that I love about this is someone in the community actually had it made into a postcard, and they had them made, put all around the community. So, to remind people, here's all this great stuff we have going on. And again, so that goes back to what I was saying. What is heart and soul? Why do people choose to embrace it? They want to kind of rediscover the good stuff that's going on in their community. And that is really the foundation of what heart and soul is designed to do. So, a key part of Heart and Soul is bringing the table to where people are. In the purpose of doing that is this idea of this question of how would you like community input sessions to look something like what you see in this picture, where there's different ages of people together, different backgrounds. People look like they're having fun, working with people and, learning about each other. It's interactive. It's dialogue centered. There's a wide range of participants. So back when I asked that first question, how difficult does it feel to bring people together? This is kind of the answer to that. I think this is kind of what people want, that it kind of feels good to be able to actually interact with people in their community. And that's where we have found that Heart and Soul has success. It can transform towns because residents themselves do the work, not outside consultants. It gets people out and meeting one another so that relationships are built, people are learning from each other, and they're developing a plan of action together. So many people own it, not just one entity in the community. So thank you for putting that image up, Cheyenne. All right, so there are three guiding principles to Community Heart and Soul. You can see them laid out here. Right in the middle is this concept of involve everyone. And that is, so your coach and our materials help train communities how to connect to all folks in their community, as many as possible, how to find missing voices. And then they use a story gathering and listening and sharing approach to connect with those folks. And then another one is focusing on what matters. And that is really trying to surface from your community, from as many people as possible. What do they have to say about their community that matters most? What do they enjoy most about living there? What are their hopes and concerns? What do they want to see preserved? What do they want to see in the future? So that's what we mean by focus on what matters, really, narrowing in to get people to talk about what their connection is to the community. And then play the long game is a way to pull through those first two principles and say, we're headed somewhere for the future. So playing the long game is like sustaining this process over, that the 24 months that I was talking about, so that it can live on in the community. It's not a one and done thing. Like a consultant comes in, tells your community what to do, and maybe you go do it, and maybe it's successful or maybe it isn't. The idea is people are investing things right along the way so that it has some staying power after the formal process is done. And then, an action plan is actually coming into play. So that's the play the long game piece. And then the next visual is really digging down a little bit more into that idea of the involve everyone principle, which is, I said, we have tools that help you uncover together who are all the people who live, work, and play in your community, so you know how to go out and reach them and draw them into the process and hear what they have to say and invite them to be, part of what is going on in the community. So that's what that visual is about. And then the next one is when we say that this is all a step-by-step process, we kind of encapsulate it in what we call 4 phases. So you can see the names of those phases right up here. There's one called Imagine, which is kind of the getting started, the first setting the foundations, finding out who all the people are in the community, doing what we call a community network analysis, and then moving on to the next phase, Connect, which is the one I really want to focus on today. So I'll leave that for a minute. And then Plan, which is taking what's learned from the community to start putting a plan together and action ideas for the community. And then Act, which I think kind of describes exactly what it is. Let's get some things done, so it's got the 4 different parts. But as I said, I really like to focus on the Connect, because this is the heart of Heart and Soul. This is where you're doing all the engagement with the community and finding out, what they think. We call it story gathering, and it has a very particular purpose and focus in the way you go about doing that. And we have all kinds of ideas for how to do that creatively. It's basically having, those neighbor to neighbor, cross the fence kind of conversations with each other that leads to the development of what we call heart and soul statements. So to just say a little bit more about like that creativity that communities bring to this story gathering part, where they're finding out what people know and love about the community. We have this first visual of an example of a different story gathering approach that in this community, Arlington, they had another chalkboard type thing where they put this out in a public place. What do you love about Arlington? We invite you to, come put that up on our board. And again, you can see how it's like filling up, and you can see that, a young person is at the table, but it's really anyone, any age, was adding something to this. They come up, take a picture of it, record it, erase it, put it somewhere else in the community, and find out information from a whole nother set of people. So it's also starting with the positive. People love to to describe what they like about their community, and they like to see what other people are saying that they love about their community. So that is one form of story gathering. Here's another one that was creative in Colorado. If you're thinking about how hard is it sometimes to reach people who are maybe in the 20-year-old range in your community or the 30-year-old range. So this was a very kind of targeted approach, thinking about, well, where do kind of the young professionals gather in our community? Well, one place was a brewery. So there was this new beer that had come out, literally called Love It or Leave It. And they played on that theme by offering coasters throughout the whole brewery. So when people came in and it had this question, this was the Heart and Soul Project, it said, what do you love about the North Fork Valley? You can kind of see it in the corner of this image. And what would you leave? Or, what would you want to change about it? So on one side, they wrote what they loved, and the other side, they wrote what they would change. And they had hundreds of these cards that they collected, giving input to what is going on in the community and trying to collect that. So it was a fun way to engage people. And then again, not only they're sharing, but they can see what other people said. So the next one is really about reaching the youngest people in the community. So again, when we talk about involve everyone, this isn't just talking about, the adults between the ages of 50 and 65, are going to help decide what's going on in this community, but how can we reach every segment of the community across all populations? We all contribute to this community, are live in this community, and so have something to say about it. So this is for the youngest children, where they usually they have they are invited to draw a picture about something they love about the community. Why do you love it? Write a little sentence, and then what else do you wish our community had? So it gives a chance for the youngest people to kind of weigh in on this too. So in this, you see a whole binder the community put together, all the responses that they had gotten from, I think they're elementary school students. So I always love that one. And then I think we have one more. Yes. So in terms of creative story gathering, you can see that interviewing is happening here at really, outside and public places where people are already gathering. I think the one, actually, I think both of these were attached to two different communities, but they are attached to festivals that were going on. So it was a great place. People were already showing up, and it was nice. They had a little corner to come and hear and gather information from people about how they interact with their community and their hopes for the community. So thank you, Cheyenne. So to kind of round out that part, all about, story gathering, getting input from the community, what happens when a community has gathered all of that information, they put it together and they create what we call heart and soul statements, which represent usually between 6 to 10 things that the community decides that these are the things that we value, and they kind of elevate those. So you see the right side of this particular image, young gentleman is holding a lawn sign. So this community, Meadville, Pennsylvania, they actually put these statements on lawn signs and had them around the community. Here's what came out of all this story gathering that people shared with us. And the picture on the left, you can see that's where the community together is drafting those statements based on all of the input that they had gotten from communities. So let's see what the next image shows us. Yes, it's a picture of just from two communities of their heart and soul statements, their themes, and then what they had put, under it. So we love the people, we love the size and locations, we love the activities, we want to support our local businesses, education is important, volunteerism and leadership. So these are the kinds of themes that were surfaced out of it. And then what happens to that? I think our next image might have that. Oh, it's not necessarily, I think we took that one out, but basically this all gets put together in what we call a community action plan, which is written by the community. Again, not an outside consultant, but what is the community deciding for themselves that they want to be working on? So all the ideas for action get put into an action plan. This particular slide that's up right now is just looking at what are some of the things communities express have come out of their heart and soul process. They feel that their town officials now have a better understanding of what matters most, and those officials often really appreciate having that guidance, because they don't have the time out time to go out and do all this deep engagement themselves. So they're usually very receptive to hearing what, the community has put together for them. We have certainly seen new volunteers and leaders emerge out of the process. They get to know their community so well by doing Community Heart and Soul that they're like, oh, I want to sign up for that committee, or I'm going to run for the school board, things like that. We see history and culture being honored. We see investment in the town increasing, and therefore pride and confidence growing in the community, which leads to better things. So what we wanted to do here is just play a little video. I can talk and talk. I'm almost finished, by the way, my piece. But one thing that I love to do is hear directly from community members about what they get out of the process, because they own it and it's theirs. And this little video that Cheyenne is going to play is you're going to hear voices from volunteers who are part of their Heart and Soul effort in different parts of the country, talking themselves about what the Heart and Soul process meant.
Diane, I've seen some comments that, and I can't hear it either, that there's no audio with the video.
Oh, I was wondering about that. I couldn't hear it either, but I thought it was because I've been having problems with my audio.
Okay.
But I think all you need to do is usually probably when you started sharing, you just have to go back and engage the video. So if you go up to your video, your drop down panel, you should be able to click a thing that says engage sound.
Oh,
sorry,
weird.
folks, about that.
Yeah, sorry.
I would have
everyone.
interrupted earlier, but I was like, I've already been having problems with my audio, so I thought it was just me.
Yeah. What in the world is happening here?
Well, do you remember if you clicked that when you first shared? Because the sound will not share if you don't click that when you go to share. But if you do your drop down, if you go to your panel, you go to your panel.
Okay. Let me see if I can do this.
That was a tease, wasn't it, everyone?
Oh, yeah, the share. You guys, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I was just like enjoying the music and just living my best life. So let's do that again. I'll start it from the beginning. The movie, not the whole presentation. I'm sorry. Okay, let's do it.
One of the best things that happened as a result of going through the Heart and Soul process was our Board of Commissioners and our local government actively use this process as they go out into the community and they want to engage residents, get their input. What do you hope for in the future of your town? How do you want to be involved in making that happen? And I just think that in and of itself is a huge success that we as a team are really proud of.
We've identified not only just volunteers, but people that are emerging as leadership elements of our community for community building and volunteering.
Heart and Soul gives forever. It just gives forever. It trains you, You develop community development skills that you can take out other entities in town. Then you're building networks. You don't even know you're building networks, but you are. And networks are starting to bring that positive feeling of heart and soul out to the various groups. You go through your project, the groups are a part of that project. You're informing your local council. They're in touch with everything that's going on. They know everything you're doing because it's positive. There's nothing to hide. There's no hidden agendas.
Well, I think the most important thing that resulted from Heart and Soul was, again, the first thing involving everyone. Reaching out to ordinary folks, getting them excited about things that were going on in the city and what might happen. And then seeing some of those things happen kind of gave everybody a can-do attitude. I think it gives people a chance to be involved and take ownership in Galesburg.
One of the most important things resulting in our efforts is bridging the gap between departments in the community.
I would also say that a heart and soul process allows for some healing that can really transform your community. The process is very important in that way. It's going to help your community move forward together with everyone at a time when I think that is very important, when people are feeling really anxious and isolated and stressed out.
We are like this with our city councils, whereas if we have ideas, if we have plans, they want to hear it. They want to know what Community Heart and Soul has gathered and what the people are saying. You know, they can't get right to us. They want to know what we're saying, and they go through Community Heart and Soul to hear it.
And the Community Heart and Soul made sense because it was very methodical. It had a process, it had a procedure, which has really helped us get more of our residents involved. I can't tell you how many people are more involved in the community because it's Heart and Soul initiative. The people that never have done anything are now going to council meetings, they're filling out the citizen forms to get on committees. It has really helped.
All right. Thank you, Cheyenne. I always love that. And I don't know, as you were looking at it, if you might have noticed what the roles these different people were playing in community. We had a teacher, two teachers, a retired fire chief, a mom. And the idea goes back to what we were saying, who initiates this and who is involved in it? Everyday residents of your community, right? It doesn't have to be people who are already in leadership roles. It's an opportunity for anyone to jump in who essentially the qualification is, do you care about your community? Come be a part of this, right? So that is how that kind of works. So this slide is really just to identify, a number of those key features that we talked about. It's people-centered. It has a very much a focus on building relationships. That's that story gathering piece, neighbor to neighbor piece. It's unique to each community, so they get to be creative about how they do some of that engagement. And they're focusing on what matters to their community. It's data driven ultimately because you're gathering all this information, and then that helps feed that into the actions that will take place next. So I think I just have one more little visual to talk about, because we said who's involved in Heart and Soul. And so when we talk about this idea, a Heart and Soul team is formed in the community. And again, that is made up of, residents who want to come together and do this work and propel the effort forward. It is a partnership with the municipal leaders and staff. So that's why you have that kind of overlapping circle. And then on these squares on the side are what we call the guides on the side. So our organization provides all of the materials, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have all of the guides to help you move through the process. You get matched with a coach, as we said, and that's part of the support that Montana Community Foundation and the extension gives, both the funding and the coaching and some sponsorship there. So I think with that, I get to turn it over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Joan. So again, I'm Jennifer Anderson, a Community Vitality Associate Specialist with MSU Extension. I get the pleasure to work across the state with a lot of our small towns, and I'm tasked with talking about kind of the first step that you would take as a community if you're interested in dipping your toes, so to speak, into Heart and Soul and what the program is, what it means, and what it can offer to your community. It all starts with this Getting Started series of community conversations. And each conversation builds upon itself, and it's really a time for your community to decide if Heart and Soul is right for your community and if your community is ready to do the entire program. So this is really the Getting Started piece of it is really just that, is just really like dipping your toes into the whole program and seeing if this is right for you and your community is ready to take it on. So what's involved in the Getting Started series? Community members will come together. They'll participate in 4 to 5 different in-person workshops, and these will be facilitated by one of us coaches. This happens sometime between April and August. You want to, every time you come together, is try to add more folks into that conversation and get more of your community members involved and to help build momentum. And in between each one of those sessions, you do have a little bit of homework to go and do in your community and try to again, the purpose is to determine if this is a good fit for you and if it's the right time for you to take on the entire program or process. Okay, next. All right. This is weird when you're talking and somebody else is changing the slides. Okay, so what does your community gain from the Getting Started series? I like this. I like the Heart and Soul process in general. I think it has some great and wonderful tools that communities can use, obviously throughout this process, but then and other opportunities as well. You're going to learn more information and be inspired. You're going to have supported exploration from the Heart and Soul program and your coach to learn more about your community and about what matters most to the people in your community. You're going to expand your networks. You're going to build better connections within your community and probably well beyond that. And then, of course, just kind of creating and building some positive momentum in that community spirit, I think is a really big piece to it. And then I think I should have one more slide, right? Yes, this is it. So tools that you can use. There's a community readiness inventory in the Getting Started phase, which I am the coach for Broadus right now. And we utilize that. And it was great because it gives you an actual tool, tangible kind of tool to go through and kind of really do some self-discovery with your own community about how ready are you and where are the areas you kind of collectively feel like you need to work on and what are your strengths and what are opportunities for growth. Hopes for the future. So just having a conversation about what do you want your future of your community to look like? And then I love the who lives, works, and plays in your community tool. We even use that in extension quite often to just kind of do an inventory of who are the people, who are your community members and who are your stakeholders. I think sometimes in small towns, we really lose track of that. Sometimes we just forget all the people that are involved in what makes up our community. Spreading the word is all about communication and learning how to communicate your message and how to get that out and who to share it with. And then create also the last resource or tool that you can use is creating a resource plan of how are we going to do this and how are we going to implement this. So these are all examples of tools that come through in the Getting Started phase that are super helpful in the Heart and Soul process, but then also well beyond that. And we have used them in extension, replicated them in other areas of our own work. So it's been they're great tools, great resources. So I believe I'm turning it over now to Camden, who's going to tell us nuts and bolts about the Getting Started. So if your community is interested in it, she's going to share more about that.
Yes. Hi, guys. So I'm Camden Graves. I work for the Montana Community Foundation. I am the executive coordinator here. And as earlier mentioned, I'm co-coaching with Tara down in Boulder, Montana right now. So the good news for you guys is there is plenty of getting started support for your communities if you choose to undertake this getting started process. There are workshops and conversations facilitated by the certified coaches, me, Jennifer, Cheyenne, Mandy, Tara, etc. And with that, as we kind of briefly talked about, like we'll be guiding you guys through the process. You're not on your own there at all. There is a $500 stipend available for the getting started activities to cover refreshments and materials and things like that, so that you can put on successful events for your community. There is also a $2,500 stipend available for a point person within your community who will be able to kind of organize the community and member participation during this phase. So we can talk a little bit about who that coordinator is. So yeah, if your community is interested, you guys can get the stipend to kind of put a exploratory coordinator / point person in charge. This person is going to be someone who lives, works, or plays in your community. You're going to want them to have a really positive attitude, that believes in the project and thinks that this community can achieve really great things together. You want a connector person, like somebody who knows a lot of people, is willing to get to know a lot of people, and someone who enjoys that kind of social aspect of bringing people together. As the slide says, wants to know the community even better than they already do. This might be someone who's really involved in community projects and things already, or it might not be. It might be someone who wants to get involved. You're gonna want someone who is organized, who's got good communication skills, and who's also able to listen to what is being said and spoken about in the community. So this coordinator / point person, what exactly do they do? So this person is going to lead the effort to bring people together to participate in this Getting Started series. You would be, or they would be, consulting with coaches on a regular basis and kind of coordinating with them about progress, questions, maybe any challenges the community is facing in this Getting Started series, and kind of helping with the coaches to coordinate when all these events are happening. They will be doing ongoing outreach to generate interest in this project, spread awareness, expand circles, get as many people involved, as possible from a lot of different sources in the community. They will work with the community heart and soul coach to kind of plan and prepare for these facilitated activities in the community. And they are the logistics person. They are going to be the one who is coordinating for all these activities: time, place, setup, tech, any printouts that need to happen, refreshments, etc., all of that. And they're going to be the ones who are communicating to the participants and to the wider community about these events and keeping people informed and engaged after the events happen. So I think I'm now passing it over to Mandy to talk about what are the requirements to partake in this.
All right. So again, my name is Mandy. I'm the Wheatland County Extension Agent located in Harlowton. And we've talked a little bit about the community coordinator role. And so now we're just going to go through the community requirements for the getting started phase of Community Heart and Soul. So the first thing is that we need to make sure that the community is committed to actually completing the Getting Started series. So we're going to go through that timeline a little bit more, but we need to make sure that the community is in fact committed to going through all of those steps. Again, that you have a point person that is willing to lead that and work with the coach and take on that role And hopefully they would be somebody who could commit to fulfilling that role for the duration of the timeline for the getting started process. And then we are asking that each community have a match of $500 for the, and that can be in kind. So for the getting started process, we're asking communities to come up with that. And that could be spaces where you're meeting, that could be, so it's a soft match. It doesn't have to be a hard cash match. That could be food, that could be event space, that could be materials, that could be anything like that for the community requirements. You're also going to need to fill out we can talk about that here, yeah. So, so today we're doing the webinar. So that's the first thing to do on your timeline. So you already get to mark that off the list. By March 20th, there is the deadline to submit your interest form for the getting started. And so I want to spend just a second to talk about what a community needs when they're doing that. And so you're going to need a description of your community and what makes your community unique. You're going to want to have a summary of past experience of your community. So have you done anything like this before? Was it successful? Was it not successful? What did you learn? You're going to want to have an idea of involvement or at least engagement from local or community or county level government. And then do you have a thought on who could be that contact person for you? And then also some ideas of where you could start to find that match, that $500 match. So then in early April, communities are going to be selected. And then through April through August, so think about this as well. Does that fit for your community? April through August, you're going to complete that Getting Started series with the guidance from a Montana coach. In August, your community is going to need to decide if Community Heart and Soul and completing the full process is right for your community, and then go ahead and make that decision. And if it is in fact correct, then you'll want to apply to complete the entire process. And then after September, the communities who are going to launch Community Heart and Soul will be selected. So that just gives you a frame and kind of an idea of how that fits into your community schedule and if that works for your community. So it isn't something that we want communities to sign up for now to put on the table for 2 years from now. So just so you're aware of that timeline as we're moving forward. And then I think in our next slide, we're just going to give you an overview right now so that you see what that full Community Heart and Soul process looks like. So if you are selected and to launch Community Heart and Soul, as partners, what we will provide is you will still have a community coach to walk alongside you and help you through that process. You'll receive some seed money to help you launch your Community Heart and Soul in your process. There's wonderful resources, so many resources, and just so many really good resources and a roadmap to help you be successful in that process. And then all of the materials, resources, and toolkits to help you go through the step-by-step process. So that's really the beauty, is it's community driven and it can become your own. And also there's so many resources that you have access to. So you do not have to recreate the wheel. You can adapt the wheel. You can borrow somebody else's wheel. I guess if you want your own wheel, you can make it. But there is a lot of really wonderful resources for every community. And then I need to pass it over to Cheyenne.
Awesome. Thanks, Mandy. Thank you, everybody, for going through all of that. First, I'm going to see if there are questions in the chat. Okay, I don't see any true questions in the chat. Sorry again about the audio earlier. You operator error, but does anybody want to come off mute and ask any questions? And don't worry if you don't know what your questions are. The next slide will tell you what to do if you think of some afterwards. So Jane, I saw you come off mute. Go for it.
Is there ever a start, like this is April to August, to kind of do a soft start as I'm understanding it? Is there ever a different cycle of time?
That's a great question. So for this cohort of communities, we'll stick to that timeline that Mandy shared. That is not to say that like we won't ever shift. But this year for us, that's just kind of where the dial landed. But certainly if there's feedback, and Joan, you can speak to this too, but if there's feedback of like, this timeline just doesn't work for communities, like please share that with us too, because that can shape a lot of things for us moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I guess that I would add to that is, we have a lot of experience, kind of at the national level working with different partners in a lot of different places, and their timeline, they kind of the partners are the ones helping shape the timeline. It's helpful to have a timeline and to have the deadlines so that people will keep moving things forward. So that is the approach that Montana Community Foundation and the extension took to roll this out for this year. Because as you can see, there is kind of a deliberate step-by-step process. So, people coming in different times can be sometimes challenging, but I think it's more to see like who might be the cohort of communities. I think one of the slides we didn't have up, Cheyenne, but feel free to talk about it. I forget if it was in there, but you're looking at choosing 3 to 5 communities to do getting started. Like there's enough coaching capacity to have 3 to 5 communities matched and do that. And then as Manny was talking about, the end of the process is the time, because that's where you explore and discover, like, is it right? Is it a right fit? Good time? There's enough people, interested in this to actually launch, a longer process. And then at the end of that time, there'll be a larger application, to apply for the funding and the full launch and all of that. So that is why those little milestones are in there to kind of help a community really move along and get there. Pretty much everything all the time that a community invests in the getting started, like the application to do Heart and Soul is like the summary of all of that work. Like, here's everything that we did, and you put it right in there. So it's almost like you're being guided to fill in the application, if you will, like you'll have that information as you're going along. So, I think it would be up to obviously the foundation if they were, okay, someone's needs a slightly different timeline, but high interest, then it might depend on like capacity later in the year about being able to start on a different timeline.
I see, Jan, you must be coming from Seeley Lake, asking about how this program fits with the Montana Nonprofit Rural Ambassador Program. I can speak to that because I'm also one of the nonprofit rural ambassadors. It can really go hand in hand beautifully. So the whole point, for those who aren't familiar, is there are, I think 14 of us scattered throughout the state who are designated ambassadors with the Montana Nonprofit Association. And I think that while maybe not totally overlapping work, I think that there is kind of that best practices portion that can be used for, working with groups. It's not necessarily, you're not going to have a board per se, but working with a committee of folks. And also too, I think that it's a really great opportunity to kind of loop in some of those nonprofit partners in your community, because as all of us who work for a nonprofit know, that those roots are deep and they're often intersecting with others. So, Jan, I love that question, and I would love to, as this process kind of evolves, like see how those two programs can work even more closely. So it's a great question. Does anybody have any other questions
Shannon,
while we're on the call?
Cheyenne, I was wondering if you could maybe walk through actually the interest form that Mandy had talked about, like where to find that and how to do that if you or your group are interested in expressing your interest.
I would absolutely adore that. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing the screen momentarily because these are the downfalls of having one screen to work with, but this is what we're going to do. Oh, also, here's some information for let's go into here. Okay, so on the, I need to come back in so I can share again. So on the MCF website where you signed up to attend this webinar, you can, there's a lot of information here. So should you need anything, like please, please, please ask. But one of the things that is available is the interest form. So we'll just walk through that. I don't want to autosave this, but if you start going through this, please feel free to reach out. And it doesn't necessarily have to be to me. It could be to any of our coaches, but it's short. It's 3 pages, and the first page is mostly this beautiful picture and just some background information. So don't panic. But like Mandy said, I mean, it takes one person to fill this out. So fill it out, who you are, where you work, what community you're from. So that's really easy. The only hard-ish part, oh, it's not going to let me skip it. I'm going to have to just keep going. Sorry, guys. Okay, so now, in the third section, though, so this is really where you kind of get into the meat of this. So tell us about your community. And like, I think that one really important piece for us is like, I want to read these and like kind of have a feel for your community. Like, you know, it's not a thesis project, like don't go too far into it, but just like, what are your demographics? What are some really cool, iconic things about your community's culture, or things that you identify like, you know, this is our community's culture, but it could be better. Who lives there? You know, before this call started, we were talking about communities who've seen large population changes, kind of those ebbs and flows of people coming to your community and leaving it. And then also, why are you interested? And like, really, what do you hope to gain from all of this? And Mandy talked a little bit about what other things has your community been part of? Are you a Montana Main Street community? Have you done Reimagining Rural? I know a lot of you on this call, that's how you knew to come here. But also, what are some things that you've done, and how did it go? And you can say it didn't go well. That's fine too. So, but I think another piece of this that's really important is who is committed to being part of this process. And I think that this is where you can really lean on some of those nonprofit partners to really kind of round out who wants to be part of this, and what do they have to contribute? Are they a great convener? Are they somebody that can help leverage money into your community? Like, what does that look like? Followed up with questions about, will your local government be supportive of this? And how do you know? You know, have you spoken to a county commissioner or your mayor or what have you? And then also just some thoughts about who might be that really point person that Camden talked about in her slides, of who's going to be that main exploratory person. And if you don't know, we'll get there. But just some, you know, spitball some ideas, so then we have an idea of what you're thinking. And then finally, if you can commit to doing some workshops, and along with that $500 in-kind match. So really pretty low barrier to, you know, what might come. But does anybody have any questions about that form, or about how you might, you know, if there's any questions about going about that form? And March 20th is the deadline for that. So even if you're not really sure, but you think you're interested, you think it might be a good fit for your community, feel free to fill that out, and we can go from there. But yeah, any questions about that part?
Cheyenne, this is Jennifer. I was just thinking about this. Are the questions available anywhere outside of the actual application itself? I don't know why never thought about that before, but
I don't know. I don't think so, but you know what? I'm happy to dump it into a Word doc and send it to
I'm
everybody.
just like, that might be helpful for community.
Yeah.
In my own experience of sending it, like it might be helpful for communities to have the questions outside of the application.
Sure thing.
To be able to look at
totally
them.
do that. We can totally do that.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kate from Condon. That would be super helpful.
Yeah. From Condon.
That's
and
good.
yes, Joan just put the National Heart and Soul website into the chat. There's lots of resources on that website and lots of information. You can also check out the MCF Community Heart and Soul website. And then also get your phone out, take a picture of this, but I'll also share all of these recordings. If you have any questions, any burning questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. We're easy to find, so feel free to reach out. But I just really wanted to thank everybody for taking the time today to go through Community Heart and Soul and what an exciting opportunity it might be for your community. So Joan, I'll turn it back to you for any parting words that you might have for us, and we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you to all you being here. That to me, that is an indication. Here's folks who are the sparks, the ones who care about their community. You spend an hour of your lunchtime to come and just like, well, what is this thing? And the reason I put our link in there was just, there's a lot of stories in there. If you want to take a peek at because one thing we didn't really get to talk about was like, what are the different outcomes that people have experienced, the communities have experienced? And there's a lot of stories that you can find on there, like what each community is doing with this process and what they're getting out of it. So I would encourage you to check that out, in addition to the other things that Cheyenne shared. So thanks so much, everyone. And I hope that we'll see you in some other engagement in the near future.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.